All right, today we're diving into Gabon, a nation in Central Africa that is a fascinating bundle of contradictions. On the one hand, you have this stunning, picture-perfect natural paradise, and on the other, a country that's staring down some pretty immense political uncertainty.
Okay, let's get right into it. When you think of Gabon, what comes to mind? For most people, it's probably this image of a pristine, untouched rainforest. And you know what? You'd be spot on. It really is one of the most ecologically rich and well-preserved places on the planet.
I mean, just look at this number. A staggering 91.5% of the country is covered by forest. That is just wild. We're talking one of the highest rates of forest cover anywhere on Earth. It's basically a giant green lung for the continent, just teeming with incredible biodiversity.
So you hear that and you think, wow, what an incredible place. But, and this is a big but, behind that beautiful green facade, there's a really complex story. It's a story about massive wealth, a ton of concentrated power, and some very, very recent political drama, which really brings us to the key question we're exploring today.
Just to give you a bit of perspective on size, Gabon is almost the exact same size as the US state of Colorado. But here's the kicker. Look at the population. Less than half the people. That makes it a really sparsely populated country, and that fact has had a huge impact on how it's developed over the years.
So, to really get a handle on what's happening in Gabon right now, we've got to rewind the clock a bit. Because its history, really from the beginning, has been all about one thing: the immense value of its natural resources.
For a long, long time, you had local kingdoms thriving here. But then, way back in the 1400s, Portuguese traders show up, and that starts this long, long history of European involvement. At first, it was all about stuff like ivory and wood. Then, that focus shifted to the horrific slave trade. And finally, in the late 1800s, France steps in, colonizes the whole area, and sets up this system of just pulling resources out of the ground. A system that pretty much stayed in place right up until Gabon got its independence in 1960.
Now, you might think independence would mean a fresh start, right? Maybe a stable democracy. Well, not exactly. Instead, what came next was one of Africa's longest-running political dynasties. We're talking about one single family that would define the nation for more than half a century. Think about this. From 1967 all the way to 2023, Gabon was ruled by just two guys from the exact same family, a father and then his son. And the whole thing was built on a foundation of massive oil wealth. First, you had Omar Bongo, the patriarch. He was in charge for an incredible 42 years. He started out by making it a one-party state, but later on he did allow for other parties, though, surprise, surprise, he kept winning the elections. When he passed away, his son, Ali Bongo, stepped right in and kept the family's grip on power for another 14 years.
But then, in August of 2023, everything changed. I mean, it was incredibly dramatic. Ali Bongo gets declared the winner of another election, one that a lot of people were questioning, and then, just days later, bam! Military officers seize power in a coup, they put him under house arrest, dissolve the whole government, and just like that, the Bongo family's 56-year reign was over. A new transitional leader was sworn in, and Gabon entered a totally new era.
And that huge political shift really throws a spotlight on the central paradox of Gabon. It's something economists sometimes call the resource curse. You've got this incredible, jarring gap between how rich the country is on paper and the day-to-day reality for so many of its people. So let's actually break down what that looks like.
Okay, so if you just look at the numbers, Gabon seems to be doing pretty well. It's officially an upper-middle-income nation. Its GDP per capita is one of the highest in the region. You see that and you think, okay, this is a prosperous country. And it's almost all because of its massive natural resource wealth.
But that big, shiny number, it hides a really tough reality. The overall unemployment rate is over 20%. And for young people, it's a jaw-dropping 36%. You have a whole generation struggling to find work in a country that is, supposedly, very wealthy.
And this right here brings us back to that core issue. How on earth can a country with a GDP per capita of nearly $19,000 also have a third of its people living below the poverty line? That right there is the paradox of plenty. The way the economy is structured tells us so much of the story. Take a look at this. Industry makes up more than half of the entire GDP. That's a huge slice of the pie, way bigger than services or agriculture. And here's the thing. In Gabon, when you say industry, you're really just talking about one thing: pulling stuff out of the ground.
The country is sitting on an estimated 2 billion barrels of oil reserves. And that's not even counting all the manganese, timber, and uranium. This incredible wealth has basically funded the government for decades, but it just hasn't created enough jobs for everyone.
So with this dynasty that ruled for over half a century now gone, and all this resource wealth that hasn't trickled down to everybody, Gabon is at a major crossroads. The big question is, what happens now?
You know, the country's official motto is Union, Travail, Justice, which means union, work, and justice. It's this really powerful vision, right? And those are the exact ideals that are being put to the test right now as the new leadership tries to figure out how to build a fairer future for everyone.
Ultimately, the future of Gabon is going to be decided by its people. And when you look at the demographics, it's a super young and incredibly urban nation. Over 90% of the people live in cities, and the median age is just 22. That is a generation that is absolutely hungry for opportunity and for real change.
So here's the bottom line. Gabon is this place of just immense natural beauty and massive economic potential. But it's also facing these really deep systemic challenges at a pivotal moment in its history. And that leaves us with the ultimate question for this Paradise Paradox. Will its next chapter be any different from its last?